In this Star Wars Outlaws news update video, I will be sharing with you a potential leaked release month for the game, and it's sooner than you think. Before we do get into today's news though, make sure you do subscribe to this channel so you won't miss any future news updates on Outlaws. So, many people have been wondering when exactly Star Wars Outlaws will be releasing this year, and we might have just received the release month and it's coming sooner than you think. Of course, this is just a rumour, but it is coming from someone who tends to be more reliable than most. This is why I'm reporting on it. I will be sharing with you quite a bit of context which is needed to fully understand the situation, so be sure to watch until the end of the video. Tom Henderson of Insider Gaming released a report yesterday detailing some of the mood inside Ubisoft as a whole. Tom has reported on a lot of leaks that legit sources have shared with him. He is definitely one of the more reliable leakers when it comes to unannounced and unreleased games. Obviously, no one has a perfect 100% record, so not everything is true. And it is still worth saying because this Outlaws release month may not be accurate. So what was interesting about his Ubisoft report is that he specifically noted that Star Wars Outlaws is planned to release in the first half of 2024. Now I wondered if this meant the first half of the calendar that we all use, so January through June, or did he mean Ubisoft's fiscal calendar year, which runs from April through September? Thankfully, Tom cleared this up and tweeted that he did mean January through June. Specifically, Ubisoft are aiming to release Star Wars Outlaws in May, which I assume according to sources he has. This is obviously much sooner than most people think. I was surprised to read this because we are now starting February, and there hasn't been news on the game since Comic-Con in August. Aside from a couple of articles over the past few weeks that repeat pretty much the same things that we heard last summer. On February 8th, Ubisoft will be telling investors how their last quarter has gone and what's coming up in the pipeline. There is a small chance that we get some hints towards Outlaws around this time, but not necessarily, or they may not even mention the game at all, but it is a big release, one of the two big releases coming out for Ubisoft this year, and I'm sure investors will be interested in when it will be releasing. A bit of background here, but when details of the game first leaked through Kotaku last year, Ubisoft reportedly wanted Massive to get it out at the start of this year, but it was expected to slip into April 2024 through March 2025. That's what Kotaku heard from sources familiar with the project. Then in October last year, Ubisoft announced a large game had been delayed from its current fiscal year, meaning it would release from April 24 through 25. They did not call out the game by name, but based on what other reporters said, and if we eliminate the games based on the names they did call out, Outlaws was the prime suspect. I did mention back then it's possible the game just slipped as little as a month or two from March to April or May, or it could be a longer delay to say November, which typically is when the recent Star Wars games have released aside from Jedi Survivor. A lot of people have been under the impression that the game would get a second gameplay reveal at UbiConnect in June, and then a release towards the end of the year. This would make sense because there's likely going to be a live-action Star Wars show coming out at the end of this year, and every Star Wars game under EA has released alongside a live-action release. It would be somewhat surprising Outlaws would release without any big Star Wars live-action show. There's just something about a game and a film releasing around each other, it just builds synergy. Tom does note that given what he wrote in his article and Ubisoft's tendencies, that he wouldn't be surprised if at all there was a delay from May for Star Wars Outlaws. Yes, some people will say this is just him covering his bases, but he does have a track record that is good, so it could be a bit of both in this situation. If the developers do need more time to polish the game, let them take as long as they need. Ubisoft trying to force it out in, say, March just isn't the way to do it. Let developers have as much time as possible, and then hopefully the game will come out to be more optimized, polished, and just be a better product and not have major issues as we've seen with Jedi Survivor. I think one of the reasons Ubisoft would like to see it out in the first half is because their next big Assassin's Creed game is rumoured to release in the second half of the year. Yes, they are completely different games and aren't related in any way, but I do think Ubisoft would much prefer having games split and spread apart rather than very close together. However, last year they did have Assassin's Creed Mirage release, and then a couple of months later, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora did release. I know some people will be saying, well, if it's coming out in May, it's got to be a May 4th release date, right? Well, this year May 4th is a Saturday, and no games release on a weekend. That is just what happens. They typically release on a Friday, sometimes a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. If you think Star Wars Outlaws is releasing on May 4th this year, then I've got a bridge to sell you. Star Wars Jedi Survivor released on April 28th last year, which is just before May 4th. There was no point releasing it a week later to satisfy a few people on the internet. It's just a made-up day after all. The same could be said about any previous Star Wars releases that happened around May 4th but not on the date. It's really not a big deal. Typically Lucasfilm celebrates May 4th with discounts on toys, t-shirts, posters, releasing emojis, or maybe the first episode of a new Disney Plus show. Another thing I wanted to mention is that at the start of this year, Disney Parks put out a blog post saying that Outlaws would be releasing in late 2024. Moments later, the wording changed to say just 2024. I said at the time, don't trust what a Disney Parks blog post says because the writer likely had no idea when the game will release, they just don't know. Someone part of a completely unrelated branch of Disney will not know the release date of Star Wars Outlaws. I know some people didn't see the correction even though it was made pretty fast, so I'm just making you guys aware if you didn't know that. It was corrected literally minutes later. Then we should be seeing something soon, I'd imagine. I did show you in yesterday's video that Humbly, who plays Kay in the game, replied to a tweet of mine saying, "I can't wait to share more soon." Outlaws is going to be an absolutely huge game for Ubisoft. They need this game to be a success, so they will be spending a lot of money on marketing for it. Marketing campaigns for games have tended to be on the more shorter side recently for some companies, especially the big publishers, whether it be Activision, Ubisoft and EA. In regards to Star Wars, EA is a great example of this. With their Star Wars games, they typically announce them and then release them around 6 months after release. For example, Jedi Survivor got its gameplay reveal in December 2022 and then released in April 2023. In between December and April, so just 4 months, there were some big marketing points. It was a constant stream of information, footage and more. This also included a delay of 6 weeks. Originally it was meant to come out on March 16th, so really just about 3 months or so. Sometimes you don't need to market a game for a whole year when the ability to do it in a short time is there, especially for a big IP like Star Wars. Jedi Survivor has been exceptionally successful, despite having just a CGI reveal trailer in April 2022, nothing until December, and then a small marketing campaign before it did release. Outlaws was released in June 2023, and we got plenty of gameplay at that time. In July, we got a great panel at Comic-Con, but since then it has been pretty much silent. Another factor to consider is that Massive's other game, Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, did get a year-long delay, but it was also in development since 2017, much longer than Outlaws has been in development. Given that we're already a month into the year, I would be surprised if Outlaws releases in May just 4 months from now. If we would have heard something substantial this month or last month, I probably wouldn't be so surprised. Either way, anything could happen, and it will be very interesting to find out when Outlaws does release because it's shaping up to be a very exciting game for us Star Wars fans. Regardless, when it does release this year, the fact that it's still coming this year is great. Yes, there's always a chance it does slip into next year, but it doesn't sound like that will be the case at this moment in time. The team at Massive and the other teams around the globe at Ubisoft have been hard at work on this game for a few years now. It actually got pitched to Lucasfilm before COVID, even though it was announced in the start of 2021. I'm super curious to see what their take on Star Wars will be like, and the Avatar team at Massive delivered a fantastic game with their recent release. I talked about what we could learn from Avatar for Star Wars Outlaws, so be sure to check out that video by clicking the card in the top right hand corner of the screen. I'm about 60% through that game now, and I have to say, I'm thoroughly enjoying it. It has a lot of great stuff, and I really hope those great things do carry over into Star Wars Outlaws. I would love to hear your thoughts on anything I've talked about in this video, so please do comment down below, drop a like to help support the channel, subscribe so you don't miss any future news updates on this game. If you did miss any of my previous videos, click on the playlist on screen right now, and I shall see you in my next video. Goodbye.